Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about books. So I did kind of make a promise to myself around Christmas time last year that I would refrain from buying books unless I knew that I loved them. Basically, I would find a book in the library, read it, and if I knew I loved it, then I would then go and buy it. And that was the only way I was allowed to buy books, unless of course they're like new releases that I'm waiting for and that sort of thing. So there are loopholes, but yeah, I made that promise to myself. As you can probably guess based on the title of this video, I did not keep that promise. Today I'm going to do a book haul of the books that I bought since my December book haul, which is like 3 weeks, which isn't a very long time, and I've bought 10 books. To be fair to myself, I received a gift card for Christmas that I used to buy all of these books, so I didn't actually spend any money. I am not going to be doing this video in any kind of order. I don't know which books I bought most recently, I don't know which books are my favorite, and I suck at sorting things into genres, so I'm just going to start this right off with Girl A by Abigail Dean. Now you're going to see this book again soon in my very first vlog where I went to a bookshop that is sitting on Regent's Canal, like on a body of water in London, in King's Cross, and it is amazing. Anyway, I went to that bookshop and I loved it, and of course, because it was like a special experience, I bought a book. Girl A follows Lex Gracie, who is just doing everything she can to forget about her family and the house of horrors that she grew up in. She's doing everything she can to avoid thinking about her history, her status as Girl A, the first girl who is able to escape and bring freedom to her siblings. And it's been easy enough for her to forget about that life because her father never escaped the house of horrors and her mother has spent her entire life behind bars. But then her mother dies in prison and leaves the house of horrors to Girl A, Lex, and her siblings. They are determined to turn the house of horrors into a force of good, but first, Lex and her siblings must come to terms with each other and their shared history. Like I said, this was a book that was all over YouTube when I first joined, so when I saw it, I had to pick it up, and then I actually read the blurb and I was fascinated by it because I believe there was a similar sort of cult-like family situation with a family that was known as the Wolf Pack, and then there was another one in the US with a family that I think had like 12 or 13 children, and I find those cases so fascinating in that no one knows what's going on behind closed doors. I think it's going to be a really fascinating read, so let's be honest, it's probably going to be one of the next few that I pick up once I've finally read through my library books. Next up is a book series that I have been just obsessing over recently, and this is also appearing in that vlog that I was talking about in Girl A, and that is, excuse me, this is heavy, the Heartstopper series. I am so excited by these. I am not going to attempt to hold all of these up because they are really heavy, so let's just get the first one. Heartstopper follows two boys named Charlie and Nick who are just trying to survive high school, just going through the motions, trying to figure themselves out, trying to find themselves. Charlie is an openly gay kid at the school who received a lot of bullying when he came out, and so he's dealing with the residual effects of that, the mental health issues, the anxiety. And then Nick is your typical sort of golden boy, rugby player, manly man, and he is beginning to question his sexuality as he begins to experience growing feelings for Charlie that are beyond that of just being friends. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers about the entire series. Everybody knows it's a romance, so I'm not worried about you knowing about that, but the first book follows these two boys as they're sort of growing their friendship and figuring each other out, second guessing themselves and each other, and then the rest of the series just follows their relationship as they survive high school and face various trials and tribulations like homophobia, more bullying, acceptance. It is a fascinating series. It's a very quick read. I absolutely love it. I've been raving about it for ages, so yeah, I had to buy it because I couldn't keep waiting for the library to get it to me. The next 5 books were all books that I bought literally this past weekend because I went to Waterstones in the city in London and it was huge, which naturally meant that I couldn't resist picking up almost every book that I saw, reading the blurb, and then pocketing a bunch of them. So the first one that I bought was These Violent Delights by Gong. This has been everywhere. It has been so hyped up and I feel so behind the curve because I haven't read it yet and the sequel's already out. Like, it's just come out and everybody's reading it and loving it, and I'm just like, what's going on? These Violent Delights is a Romeo and Juliet inspired tale set in Shanghai in the 1920s. It follows Juliet and Roma, the heirs and prodigal children of these two rival gangs, who are both each other's first love and first betrayal. But then a deadly madness starts to make its way through the city and the two gangs are each trying to figure out what's going on, so they assign Juliet and Roma to figure it out, and so they kind of form a reluctant alliance to work together to solve the mystery. I am fascinated buy this. I am so excited to pick it up. It's probably going to be a little while because I know it's a series and I know the second book is quite long, so I don't want to get into it yet because I've got a bunch of series I want to finish first, including Red Rising and Maureen Johnson's like Truly Devious series. But once I've done those, once I've got there, I will pick this one up. I also want to finish Caraval. But yeah, then I'll pick this up. I promise. This next book I thought was based on a true story, and I'm not exactly mad when I found out that it wasn't, but I was a little disappointed, but I'm still super excited to read it. And that is In the Seeing Hands of Others. In the Seeing Hands of Others, it's a story told entirely through mixed media, which if you know me, you know I love stories that use multiple different mediums to tell the story. So there are police transcripts, there are emails, there are messages. It follows a nurse on the dialysis ward who is brought forward to testify in a rape trial, only for the defendant to be exonerated. It's supposed to be very darkly funny, it's supposed to be heartbreaking, it's supposed to be a really, really interesting take on the sort of legal drama genre, plus the cover, like, look at that. It's very bold, and I just love it. This was definitely a cover buy. Next up, we have The Audacity by Katherine Ryan, who is a comedian that I absolutely love. I find her hilarious. So when I found out she had a sort of like biography kind of self-help guide book, I had to pick it up. But yeah, like I said, this is like a self-help, how to be witty and how to not care about things and how to spend all your money on expensive dogs guide. She's a single mother with a really, really fascinating history, a fascinating story. She's very bold and frank, like she doesn't hold back. She is courageous and outrageous, and I cannot wait to hear what she has to say. I think it is going to be a very, very funny read. She definitely presents as like this melodramatic person, and you can just tell from that picture on the back that that is just so true to her. That is so authentic, and I love it. So yeah, I'm excited to give this a go. Okay, I told a slight fib. There are only 4 that I actually bought this weekend. One other that arrived the other day is a pre-order. So this is the second last book, and that is The Gosling Girl by Jacqueline Roy. The Gosling Girl, or Michelle Gosling, is infamous for a crime that she committed when she was a child, where she led a young white girl away to her death. Now, having done her time, Michelle is released from prison and thrust into a world that she doesn't understand because she's been in prison since she was a kid. And she has to start her life over again, which is thrown for a complete loop when another mysterious death occurs near her, and of course, she is the prime suspect. At which point Natalie Tyler enters the story, who is the officer assigned to investigate this particular murder and therefore interview Michelle. Natalie is a black detective constable who finds common ground with Michelle. Natalie herself was ostracized from her family, rejected by everyone for becoming a police officer. She often feels she's in the wrong job, but she feels this complicated need to protect Michelle. And so the book just follows their dynamic and this ongoing murder case, trying to figure out who actually committed the crime. It's another sort of crime novel, but with a really, really interesting like psychological element of this cop wanting to protect this young girl who's just trying to get past everything that she experienced in her life. I'm interested to know more about her original crime, Michelle's original crime. What would entice her to lead a young girl away to her death. And the very last book in this video is Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaghy, I think is how you pronounce that. This is one that I saw in a Book of the Month subscription box, but because I live in the UK, I wasn't able to get it, so I pre-ordered it on Waterstones thinking that I would get it pretty soon, but it's been like 6 months since it appeared in that box, so it's finally arrived. Once There Were Wolves follows Inti Flynn, who arrives in the Scottish Highland with a traumatized sister and 14 displaced grey wolves. As a biologist, she knows and understands that the only way to sort of rewild the landscape in the Scottish Highlands is to reintroduce this species. And she honestly doesn't really care about this perspective of the people in the local community, because she's more interested in protecting the environment in this beautiful area and also repairing her siblings from the trauma that they'd experienced that got them out of Alaska. But then one night, Inti stumbles over the body of a farmer, and naturally her wolves are the prime suspects for this particular murder or attack, I guess, but she is determined to protect them and she doesn't think that they did this, so she makes a decision that is an incredibly reckless decision to sort of cover up this murder and find out who actually committed it. It's supposed to be incredibly wild, gripping, and just emotional and heartbreaking as this woman just tries to protect her family and these wolves that she loves so much. So yeah, another one that I'm very excited to read, and again, the cover is just gorgeous. I love the sort of frosty vibes it's giving me, and then I love this cut across here with the grey wolf in the corner there. Those are the 10 books that I have bought recently. I've added them all to my little book catalog, but I'd really love to know if anybody else has read them, has loved them. any thoughts around these sorts of books. As always, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when I release new content. Don't feel pressured, don't come for me, just do it if you wanna. And then I will see you in my next video. Bye!